Okay, so we are doing our presentation on pollution and invasive species. So the first kind of pollution is oil pollution, and the oil spills that cause this pollution are a result of accidents, generally by tanker trucks, any sort of boats that to something and spill the oil, and also old and broken equipment that isn't replaced, which can release a lot of the oil. So containment is very important, especially when it goes into waterways. The chemical breakup is something that can help to control the impact of the oil spills. And two of the most famous oil spills are the Deepwater Horizon and the Exxon Valdez in 2010 and 1989. So, one of the harmful results of oil spills is oil toxicity, and it causes a lot of health problems and destroys ecosystems, affecting the food chain and food supply. Oil can also emulsify or thicken in water, which is a lot more difficult to contain since the chemicals cannot break up. And in addition, oil and gas production is a large contributor to air pollution since they generate toxic gases.
Okay, so next we're going to be talking about the solid waste pollution. So how it started is from a few different things. So the first one is commercial establishments. So this is like buildings and companies, and then residential houses, so where people live, and then debris from construction or demolition, and then debris from roads such as asphalt or scrap metal, and then also the scrap from like vehicles if they like got broken down. And then agriculture is the last way that it started for solid waste pollution. And how the problem is getting better is that more people have started recycling or using the 3 R's, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. So just a little explanation of each one is that reducing is like reducing the types of inputs that we have and making it like the use in a more potential way. And then reuse is using the product or material that it was intended to do and not just discarding it right away. And then recycling allows us to use material in a more municipal solid waste.
There are many factors that contribute to air pollution, most of them being man made products. This is especially prevalent in overpopulated countries such as India and China. Air pollution started to become a big thing during the 1760s when the Industrial Revolution began. This is due to the fact that there were many factories releasing poisonous toxins into the air, therefore creating air pollution. In today's day and age, it has gotten even worse. With the creation of cars and even more factories, there continues to be more and more toxins emitted into the air. Since the increase in air pollution, the modern era, there have been laws and acts passed in order to regulate the amount of pollutants that are transmitted into the air. Most famously, the Clean Air Act that was passed in 1970. This allowed for the EPA to regulate the amount of pollutants in order to protect the environment and public health.
Okay, so next is the non-chemical water pollution. So 30% of the non-chemical water pollution is from the sediments in our waterways, and then the other 70% comes from human activities. So the problem with sedimentation is that the suspension of soil particles causes the waterway to become more brown or cloudy, and the reduced infiltration of sunlight lowers productivity of aquatic plants and algae. And some definitions from this section is that the thermal pollution is like the non-chemical water pollution that occurs when the human activities cause a substantial change in the temperature of water. And then that thermal shock has a dramatic change in temperature water and that can kill organisms. And some ways that can fix the non-chemical water pollution is to one, not pour fat from cooking or other types of fat, oil, or grease down the sink, and also to not dispose household chemicals or cleaning down the sink or in the toilet. And then the last one is to don't flush pills, liquid powder, medications, or drugs down the toilet. And by using these ways, we can help stop non-chemical water pollution.
Sediment pollution is through sand, clay, silt, and other soil particles that are carried from a site by runoff water that eventually settles at the bottom of streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds, and any other bodies of water. It It can come from soil erosion, decomposition of plants or animals, and it can also come from construction activity. The largest factor to sediment pollution, however, is agriculture. Sediment pollution continues to be America's greatest pollutant by volume. It is the leading cause of water pollution. Sheet and rail erosion rates have decreased significantly for the period 1982 through 1992. And reservoir sediment surveys show increasing sedimentation rates from the period 1970 through 1985. Thermal pollution is defined as a sudden increase or decrease in the temperature of a natural body of water, which may be ocean, lake, river, or pond, by human influence. The largest source of thermal pollution is plants or facilities that take water and then return it at an altered temperature. That altered water can change the oxygen levels and can have disastrous effects on local ecosystems and communities. Soil erosion is also a factor to thermal pollution, as it causes bodies of waters to rise and fall and be more exposed to the sun. Deforestation also can cause a body of water to be more exposed to the sun and therefore changes the temperature.
Noise pollution is an invisible danger to wildlife and their habitats. It's a disturbance and unwanted presence of noises that negatively affect habitats and humans, and this includes traffic, construction, and airports. The noise pollution for humans can hurt child development. It can start early onset dementia. Noise pollution affects humans' daily performance due to sleep disturbance, causing cardiovascular disease and hypertension. Noise pollution also affects marine life. Animals like whales use their hearing to orient themselves and communicate. So the rise of oil drills, sonars, seismic survey devices, coastal recreational watercraft, and shipping vessels, they're at threat to hemorrhage and death.
Indoor air pollution is pollution that affects the indoor of houses. This usually occurs in more developed countries such as the United States. It can be caused by a lot of different sources. And one of the sources is volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Those can be found in household products, insulation, and furniture. There's carbon monoxide from stoves and furnaces, tobacco smoke from cigars or cigarettes, and those contain harmful carcinogens. Old paint, which can contain lead. Insulation and floors and ceilings can contain asbestos. Rocks and soil underneath houses can seep radon into groundwater or foundations, and there's a lot more too. Hazardous waste is liquid, solid, gaseous, or sludge waste material that is harmful to humans, ecosystems, or materials. There is some federal legislation in place to prevent it from being dumped in oceans or being dumped in just bad places that could affect humans badly. So that's the U.S. Resource Conservation and Recovery Act and the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act.
And lastly, invasive species are defined as a living organism that is not native to an ecosystem, which causes harm to the other species that inhabit that ecosystem. It causes competition with other plants and animals where only one species can dominate. So especially when competing for the same food source, it's really important that only one species is dominating and that their source of food is not being overtaken by multiple species. It's also spread through activities such as transportation of goods, specifically food, and also on ships because they can carry species on their propellers, in their wood, and plants and animals can be illegally or accidentally transported, and these may contain bugs or plants that can affect the composition of an ecosystem. And it also changes the food web because if there is too much competition, it can destroy or replace food sources. And as seen in the picture over here, this is a type of grass that is very invasive. And in the field trip, we had to remove a lot of that grass to clear the area of invasive species, so that the plants were not in competition with one another for the food source. Yeah, that's our presentation.